On today's episode, we're chatting with Jigyna Patel, a Houston area mother of 3 and passionate perinatal mental health advocate who volunteers in more than one PSI program. Pretty incredible. She shares about the power of accepting and receiving help and how her experience with postpartum anxiety, depression, and psychosis drives her to provide invaluable support and services that new parents and families deserve. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in the I Am One podcast are the speaker's own. Tuning into this podcast is not a replacement for therapy or any other form of professional help. Our discussions cover personal stories of perinatal mood and anxiety disorders and may feel triggering to some listeners. Your number one priority is to take care of yourself. So if you are in need of help, please reach out to the PSI helpline by calling or texting HELP to 1-800-944-4773 for help in English and in Spanish. At PSI, we want you to know you are not alone, you are not to blame, and with help, you will be well. Okay, let's get on with the podcast. Well, hello, Jigna. Welcome to the pod. We are so happy to be sitting here with you today for your podcast debut. This is very exciting, isn't it? Yeah. Dun, 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 dun. This is Jigna's first time sharing on a podcast, and we are absolutely honored that you trusted us to share your story. And we just met you for the first time this week, and it feels like we're basically friends. Right? We hung out in your car with you in Carline over Zoom. We brainstormed Climb Out of the Darkness merch ideas.
We also have big plans to hang out at the PSI conference. So
yeah.
So basically forced friends. Totally normal.
No, I'm happy to have met you guys.
It's been great. It's been great so far. But, we don't know everything about your story yet. And I know Emily and I'll just speak for both of us. We are really excited to hear less from me and much more from you. So let's get into it. Jigna, are you ready for your very first question?
I am.
Okay. It's an easy one, so don't worry. So if you would be so kind, please tell us a little bit about yourself, your name, pronouns, if you have kids, where you live. The mic is yours.
Okay. Well, hello. My name is Jigyna Patel. I'm in Houston, Texas, and I'm married, and I have 3 girls, an 8-year-old and 3-year-old twins. Yes.
Twins.
I get a lot.
We have a couple twin moms on staff on the Climb team. Out of the 5 of us, there are 2 twin moms. So
very neat.
Yeah.
We'll connect you. And you can twin mom commiserate.
Love that.
Yeah. Well, let's just jump into talking about the good stuff. That was good stuff. But I am so curious, what role have perinatal mood and anxiety disorders played in your life?
So 8 years ago, after I delivered my firstborn, it was an emergency C-section, and within the very first week, I started to struggle with depression, anxiety. Within the first few weeks, I wasn't sleeping. I couldn't get out of bed. I did not want to care for my child. And so within 2 months, I had my pediatrician and a friend, my sisters, my husband, everybody saw the difference. And I got to talking to my doctor, and that's when my journey started. Mm-hmm. And I was diagnosed with postpartum depression and anxiety. That was 8 years ago. And then, fast forward and we were planning for just one more, but had a pregnancy of twins. So that set me backwards again. And so the pregnancy 3 years ago was again full of depression and anxiety. And after I delivered, I went through it all again. And then after they turned 2, I started to heal and feel better. And I joined PSI. And I joined PSI for 2 reasons. In the 2 years after I had my twins, I was just constantly reading and researching and wondering, why does this all happen to women, the depression, the anxiety, and so forth. And that's when I got really involved, just wanting to read and learn more about it. And then PSI had so many great resources and websites and different ways to get involved At first, I was just going to join a support group, but I was like, you know what? Let me see if I can volunteer. I want to give back somehow. I feel in a safe place, in a healthy place. And so that's when I joined PSI 2 years ago now. And so in the 2 years, I've been able to connect in so many different ways. It also has changed what I want to do with my life now. My background is in marketing and sales, but in these last 2 years, I have gained so much passion, confidence, and just like a dedication to maternal mental health that I want to go back and get my master's in counseling.
Yeah.
And I also want to work in this field,
Yeah.
for the rest of my time, I guess you could say. And it's just been like goosebumps all along these
I
last
was
2 years.
just gonna say,
Yeah.
I'm feeling some feelings.
And then one of the other biggest realizations that I had was I read an article about postpartum psychosis, and I saw a webinar about it last year. And for the first time, I realized that the third PMAD that I struggled with 8 years ago was psychosis. After watching the webinar, after learning about psychosis, and talking to a few people on the task force, which I've just recently joined as well, I realized that I had all the symptoms. But 8 years ago, they only diagnosed me with depression and anxiety, not psychosis. And when I learned that I had postpartum psychosis and I survived, it was another goosebump moment. Another, oh my God, this is just intense.
I just got chills again.
Yeah. And for that reason,
What's going on?
yeah. And then after that, I was like, I'm meant to be here. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
if I can help diagnose and educate more women about PMADs in general, but my latest passion is psychosis, I really
Yeah.
want to get the word out. So that's where it has, this is where PMADs is now in my life. It's like
Yeah.
a little bit of new things and a little bit of old, and I'm just kind of bringing it all together.
I have a question. So the webinar that you watched or participated in,
Yeah.
was that Michelle Davidson's webinar?
It's called Slaying the Monstrous Views of Psychosis.
Yeah.
It was put
Yes.
on by PSI.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the light bulb moment for you? Like in that webinar, like you're sitting there, they're talking about like symptoms and stuff like that. Like what was the aha?
When they said, you have delusions and hallucinations, and you see things and you hear things, or you have intrusive thoughts of, hurting yourself or your child, and you've never had psychotic episodes before, and then all of a sudden you're in this place of these thoughts that are not you, and you're not sleeping. Well, that was word by word what I had gone through. Um, I did not sleep for a solid month after I delivered my child, maybe an hour or so a night. And the biggest thing was I stopped seeing in color. There were about 3, 4 days in a row where I couldn't see color. I could only see things in black and white. And then I started to lose speech. I couldn't talk. I'd go for walks, and my sister, I moved in with my parents because it all had gotten so bad. And my sister would send my nephew with me while she would care for my child during the day.
Oh,
And
wow.
she'd be like, it was summer, so my nephew was home. He was in fifth grade. And she'd be like, okay, he's going to be your bodyguard. So we'd go for walks.
Oh.
And I'd be looking at a tree, and I would say to him, I was like, what is that? And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, what is that? I don't know what that is. And he's like, it's a tree. And I'm like, okay. And so that's when I knew, okay, this is what I possibly had.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm curious about that time, you're a new mom with your first. Psychosis happened with your first,
Right.
after your first was born,
Right.
correct? Okay, just want to make sure that I'm getting the story straight. I'm curious about, how did help arrive for you? Did you bring it up? Did your family say, Jigna, you don't seem like yourself? Or were you the one that broached the topic? How did that look?
Right. It was a little bit of both. Early on, when my husband, he only had, we have our own business, so he was only home for the first 2 weeks. And he knew right away, he's like, this is not you. And within that first month, I was like, I don't want our baby. And he just looked at me like, we've always wanted kids. We prayed so hard. I had some fertility issues as well. And we were so over the moon when I found out I was pregnant. And he was like, this is not you talking.
Also, non-refundable. What?
And he was like, what are you talking about? He's like, what do we do now? And he was so down and out himself that he couldn't even think straight. to help me think straight. And so he was the first person that was like, okay, this is not right. And then, like I said, I moved in with my sisters, and I had like a couple of really good friends that visited often. And so, one by one, everybody was like, okay, you need to see a therapist, talk to your OB. What's the next step? And one of my really good friends was like, you actually need medication as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And, none of these people were in the health field, so they didn't know what the steps were, but I got all this information and I was like, oh my God, what do I do now?
Yeah. How did you receive that when your friends and your family said, ooh, you need some help? Like, how did that feel to you?
I actually felt really good.
Did it?
Because I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I'm sick, and this is not me. Because for the longest I thought, is this who I am now? This person who,
Yeah.
has no control, no independence, can't take care of my child, can't even do the most simplest things. And then when they told me that you're sick, I'm like, okay, sickness is temporary. Sickness can be healed. And so
Oh,
it felt,
wow. You thought that in that moment? You told yourself this is just temporary?
at that time, I told myself, like, cannot be forever.
Wow. That's great.
I could tell the difference also. There were days when I couldn't, but there were days when I'm like, this can't be it. This is not it.
Yeah.
How could I be so different? And I had so many people vouch that this is not you. And then my older sister had a child, so she had baby blues. And I had some other friends at that time who were having kids, and we were talking about baby blues and we were talking about depression, but they all were like, whatever you're going through, Jigna, is a bit more extreme.
It's a
different.
little different. Yeah. Go team. Way to be talking about that as you're sitting there bopping your babies. Not bopping.
Bouncing.
Oh my God.
Okay. Bouncing. Yes. I don't mean like scooping up the field mice and bopping them on the head. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. When I say bopping, I'm imagining, I was chronically like, in the corner of my parenting class, like, with my baby in the ergo bopping up and down. That's what I mean.
Right. No,
Excuse me. I felt like I needed to just explain myself there. We are not endorsing bopping children. Just in the baby carrier.
No, I get you.
Yeah, but wow, how great for you that you and your friends were having some, like some real talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I always tell everybody that if it wasn't for my village, my sisters, my friends, and my husband, I would not have made it those first 6 months. To this day, I have a memory of my older sister sitting with my 2-month-old, or 3-month-old, singing to her, changing her diaper while I'm sitting on the bed next to her and just staring at them and thinking, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. I don't know how to do this. And she's like, all right, let's get your notepad out. She had me journal every day. And she's like, start journaling. And so it's so funny. Like, she has no experience in, mental health coach or therapy, but she is the older sister. There's 3 of us. And she's always been the strong one in the family. So she's like, all right, let's do this, And so she's like, start journaling, start writing things that you want to do, that you can do, and you will do. So she was there for me for those 2 months, 3 months, and every day in my ear, do this, do that, do this. And then when she went home, because she wasn't working at the time, so she'd come during the day, she'd leave, then my other sister would come. And then in the evening, one of my friends would visit, and then my husband would come on the weekends. I was at my mom's. And so it was just like everybody was a team player. And I'm so thankful for that.
You had a dream team supporting you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. As our dear Bertie Gunyon-Meyer likes to say that, like there's a season for giving and a season for receiving. And after you've had a baby, you're in a season of receiving, and you nailed it. You accepted the help, and that's hard for a lot of people. So good job. You're a strong sister too, by the way. I heard you say that your sister is the strong one. And it sounds like you come from a family of strong siblings, strong individuals, yourself included. So
thank you. No, I did learn that after I overcame what I did 8 years ago. And again, 3 years ago.
So how did the second pregnancy or postpartum period compare to the first? Did you experience psychosis again?
No, before I got pregnant, so it took me 5 years to get pregnant because the first experience after my birth was so horrible and terrifying that I decided not to have any more kids.
Yeah.
But my husband being an only child, and we'd always talked about too,
Yeah.
it took 5 years to heal, to become, strong, resilient, and be like, I can do this.
Oh, yeah.
And then we get pregnant, and I'm like, okay, I told myself that I was going to line up, whatever I needed.
Yeah.
My team again, a therapist, medicine if I needed it. I just was like, I'm going to be prepared. I got this. And then bam, the doctor tells me it's twins. And I was like, okay, you're kidding me.
Unexpected.
I can't. Right. I'm like, I only wanted one child to begin with. I was going for two more for the sake of siblinghood and my
Yeah.
husband. And are you kidding me? And so it took all of my pregnancy to get over that. And that was a huge hurdle for myself and my family. We weren't set up for that either. My husband, like I said, we own our own business. He works full time. I didn't have the dream team set up as quite as well as I did 8 years ago. And I wasn't prepared for, two at once, and plus my older one. But hey, I said, all right, left it to God, left it to faith and the family, and we did it. And I went into depression right away. I could feel it. It's so funny because I was so aware this time, and I was like, okay, I know this feeling where I don't want to eat and don't want to sleep, or I'm just in bed. I don't want to even touch that baby. I know all of this. And so in a way, I started to just like coach myself and teach myself. And my older sister wasn't there for this one, and my other sister was she's a teacher, so she was at work, and it was just me and my mom, and she was much older. And I was telling my mom, I was like, this is what I have to do, this is what I need to do. And she's like, okay, are you telling yourself or are you telling me? I was like, somebody has to tell me, but there's nobody here but me and you this time, and two crying babies. And so I'm like, okay, we're gonna do this. And she's like, okay. And so yeah, it was just like, it was a very, like, I was living it, but I was also coaching myself at the same time and lining up things. And I felt myself like I told myself that, okay, help is not going to come this time around in the way that you got 8 years ago. Do what you got to do. This is temporary. And the other thing I did was I was like, you know what? Enjoy the babies. I never enjoyed my first one.
Oh.
So I just made that my day. I made that my day. Like, how can I have fun with the twins today? And it was such a surreal thing. I enjoyed them so much. I had so much fun with them daily. It was therapeutic. It was something I never did with the first one. All my thoughts about depression, anxiety that I was having, I just kind of put them on the back burner. Like, I was doing it simultaneously. And I didn't even know I could do that, where I could feel all that and still enjoy the babies. And it all was like a domino effect because they helped me get out of my funk as well.
I have a question. I'm gonna jump in.
Hit it.
Because I'm super curious. Okay, so you said the second time around that you recognized the feelings of like depression creeping in, right?
Yeah.
Because they were not foreign, did they like elicit a different response? Like you said that you like jumped into action, like I know how to help myself, but like this is gonna sound weird. Was it like almost comforting, comfort adjacent? Like you were like, instead of
hello anxiety,
right,
my old
instead
friend.
of being like, what is this? You're like, oh right, I remember you.
Yes.
All right, come in, have a seat. You're gonna be here for a little while. Let's work this out.
You're not going to leave, are you? Let's not make it awkward. We'll figure this.
I had a moment with my older sister because she came to visit, and I was telling her how I couldn't sleep, and she just started laughing. She's like, oh my God, this is deja vu to 8 years ago. I'm like, really? She's like, yes, really. I'm like, oh yeah, you're so right. That's all I talked about is I can't sleep. I'm not sleeping. And again, that's all so I did laugh a little bit more. And I did realize that I'm like, oh my God, I did it then. I can do it again.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, in the moment, it's really hard to realize what's actually happening,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm actually not sleeping again. You're right.
And she was just like, you're saying the same things that you say 8 years ago. I was like, I know. Who could have thunk that I could have it twice? Like, who could have thought that, But hey, it happens.
PMADs do not discriminate whether or not you have all of the support from all the people doing all the things. It can still be there. So at what point, I'm trying to remember here, at what point did you know about PSI after your first was born? At what point did you find PSI, hear about PSI?
No, after the first one, I did not know. So I forgot to mention one of the other people that did address my depression 8 years ago was, or maybe I did mention my pediatrician.
Mm.
So besides my friends and my family noticing all the changes, at the 2 month visit, my pediatrician was like, "Oh, okay." She saw me. She talked to me. I don't even know if there was an assessment 8 years ago. Now
Mm.
there is. 3 years ago, my pediatrician's office did have an assessment for mental health.
Mhm.
8 years ago, I don't think there was.
Okay.
But she just right off the bat, she was like, okay, you are struggling with PPD. You need to get some help. And I was like, okay, you're like the fourth person that has told me this. And I think when she told me
Yeah.
that, I was like, okay, I'm going to have to do something. And I remember going home, and that very week, I found a therapist. I started seeing a therapist. The therapist prescribed me with medication.
Mhm.
It fell in quicker and faster. And so, no, I did not hear about PSI then. And it was just 3 years ago when I had my twins. And after that, like I said, this time around, reading and learning and, teaching myself
Mhm.
about all these PMADs is what really was part of the healing journey. I did not go back to therapy. I was looking for a therapist, but just timings and days couldn't work out.
Yeah.
So PSI became like a little bit of a therapeutic, like mold for me, because I would
Uh-huh.
just go on the website
Uh-huh.
daily and
Yeah.
just see these stories and learn about all the different
Yeah.
resources. And I was like, oh my God, they do this, do they do that? And
Mhm.
then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to volunteer in something.
Mhm.
And I just started off as a Houston support coordinator. And
Great.
I enjoyed it so much. And then I started off doing the support groups for the parents of multiples last year,
Wow.
and then enjoyed that so much. And then I joined the peer mentor program.
Oh,
And
I was in that too. Oh, cool.
yeah,
That's
I've
so
been
cool. That
mentoring.
was my gateway also.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's what I've been doing. I've been doing that as well for the last year. And then
Mhm.
I recently just joined the postpartum psychosis task force.
So was finding PSI like a middle of the night Google find? Like you were
Yes.
like, tell me all the things. And the internet was like, you're going to want to go here.
Yes, I was
Okay.
like, why do women struggle with postpartum? I'm pretty sure I Googled that like 10 times, and it led me to the website, and I was like, huh, this is like, now it's,
Oh, an entire organization that
yeah,
focuses on this? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's like, would have been good to know. My oldest is 13. It's like, would have been good to know 13 years ago. Didn't
right.
know. Obviously, I was not Googling the
Exactly.
same thing as you, Jigna. I was not as proficient in Googling all the
In
things.
our defense, Google was different back then. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
In our defense, we'll cut ourselves a break. Cool. So you are in Houston. And are you still a peer mentor? Or
I am, yeah.
Okay. So, what is being a support coordinator in Houston look like?
So basically, we go work with the helpline. So the helpline gets, people who contact them and then attach you to somebody that lives in a city that you live in, to the help seeker. The help seeker will contact the helpline. The helpline will be like, okay, here are some resources, but if you want to get some more information, some more local resources, we'll get you in touch with a local coordinator. And then through the helpline, I'll get a little message that this person is waiting for you to contact them. And
Hmm.
so then I make, contact with this person through text or phone call or email, and I introduce myself. I let them know a little bit about PSI, a little bit about what I can offer. And then we just start talking and chatting, and they tell me what they need, whether they need a support group, a therapist, maybe a lactation nurse, or they just need somebody to talk to for a little bit, a day or two.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, that's how it works.
That's pretty incredible. And so do you contact the help seeker in the way that they prefer to be contacted? Like, do they say, I'd like a phone call or I'd like a text or?
Right. Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good to know. We'll drop some because we're cool now. We've got show notes. We can drop links to all these things in the show notes. That's really cool to hear a little bit about how the coordination works on the back end, getting people the support that they really
Yeah.
need in the way that they would like to receive it.
Right. And because the new moms, they're busy, they're tired, they're not
Mm-hmm.
sleeping. And so they're like, okay, I do need a therapist, but I don't have time to look for one.
Yep.
So then I'll go into our, PSI resources or my own personal, whatever knowledge I have, and I'll find them somebody. I'll find them three or four of them. And I'll, find out what their insurance is, where they live. Do they want virtual? Do they want real? And so it's just like, hey, I got you. Like, I understand you don't have that time, capacity, brain power. So
Yeah.
whatever you need.
So you had a dream team and now you're part of the dream team for people, like helping.
Yeah. And I know how important my team was for me.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm like, okay, I'm glad you reached out. Don't go anywhere. Hold on. Tell me what you need. Just talk.
Mm-hmm.
And, just like, let me be there for you.
Yeah. And sometimes people just need that. They need somebody to just ask the questions because they don't know what to say. I don't even know what to ask. I don't even know how I'm feeling. What is this thing? So sometimes people just need somebody else to ask a question so they can say, yeah, I need that.
Right.
Yeah. Nice work, my friend. That
Thank
is
you.
all really cool.
What is it like to lead a support group?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. So the support group is actually where every time I leave the meeting, I feel so heard and justified. And I'm like, yes, like, oh my goodness, these women are, they're strong, they're survivors. We're all the same. Like, I'm there for them, but they don't know how much they're there for me as
That's
well.
the truth.
And it's like, you realize that all that mom guilt and all those question marks and feelings of how are we going to do this, it really resonates with all of us. Doesn't matter race, background, how many children, where we've been, financial, nothing matters. It's just all heart. And every support group meeting I've led, I learned stuff, and I'm teaching stuff, and we're all learning and teaching together. And it's like I've had moms go, "Oh my God, that's such a good point," and I've gone like, "Oh my God, you're so right." So it's like it's amazing. I wish that I could be a part of it more often, and I wish more moms knew about it.
Yeah.
You just feel stronger afterwards. So
yeah. Is there a specific support group that you tend to lead? Are you a leader of a few different ones?
yeah, it's the support group for the parents of multiples. So that's the
Great.
one I'm doing right now.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, as you were just sharing that last point, it just totally is so true. I think that everybody in this world is so very different, but there are things that we have in common that we just don't recognize like outwardly, but like we can find these little commonalities and it really helps us feel connected to other people and like we're not alone in whatever we're experiencing at that moment. So anyway.
Yep.
Well, we'll drop a link to the support groups as well.
Yes, please.
How was the process? Was it easy to volunteer to be a facilitator of a support group?
Yeah, all the roles with PSI, I think you just have to show interest, passion, and then be willing to just follow the few steps that are required. And all the PSI staff members have been so helpful, and they're full of information. They're full of like, okay, just you got to do A, B, and C, and you're it. And that was one thing that I was worried about because I'm like, I don't really have any experience in the mental health world or maternal mental health, but now I do, and I have tons of it.
And you have
love
lived
it.
experience, which is very, very meaningful.
Yes.
Valuable. Yeah.
Right.
To be a facilitator, is there a rule about how far away from recovery or postpartum you need to be? Do you need to be 1 year postpartum? Do you need to be at least 1 year or more post recovery? What is that like?
Yes, there is. I think it is 1 to 2 years.
Post recovery?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Post recovery.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That is great to know for anybody who might be listening in facilitating or, volunteering to be a facilitator, 1 to 2 years post recovery.
Yeah.
The one thing that I learned from some of the people who run that department is that the thing that they look for the most in being a support group leader is knowing how much you have to listen, like how much you have to listen and you can't talk. Sorry. Scratch that. Reverse it.
Yes. You're so right. Yeah.
Yes.
Holding the space.
Thank you.
Being okay with there maybe being some awkward silences and letting it be.
Oh my goodness.
Because
yes.
maybe that's what
Yes.
somebody needs in that moment.
Exactly.
Yep. 100%. So when we went through the training, that was one of the questions that a few of us facilitators kept asking. We're like, what do we do to be quiet? Because we just want to be like, yes, I hear you. I know. Let me tell you about what I'm going through. But they want the group to do the talking and the sharing and talk to each other. And then at the very end, we can kind of come in and say a few things. And so that's been a challenge because I'm like, oh my God, okay, I'm just going to keep my mouth quiet because I have so much to say.
Yeah.
They're so Yeah. And I'm like, no, you guys talk with each other. And then they're waiting for you. It's a lot of times they feel like it's a therapy session, but it's
Right.
not. It's
Mm-hmm.
very different, And so we tell them at the beginning that this is by no means any sort of therapy. But one of the things that I like to do is I take notes, and at the very end, I do come in and just kind of give my story of, like I agree, or that's happened to me, or I've been in the same shoes, just so they know that I'm there, and just so they know that I was listening, and I do care and I do understand, and that's the reason why I'm here, because I went through it too.
Offering a little bit of a reflection.
That's so
Yes.
awesome, because I guess as a outgoing individual, just like Jigna, I feel like I would struggle in that space. But I think what you're saying is like that they're going to give you the tools if you are not already a great active listener, but you know that this is a way that you could help, that support groups will help you get trained in active listening and like how to sort of do the wrap at the end of a session.
Yes.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I am totally learning that for the first time, and it's been very, it's an eye opener. I'm like, okay, this is what I needed. I was huge into talk therapy 8 years ago, and I just
Yeah.
talked my therapist off, and not just my therapist, but my mom, my sisters,
Yeah.
everybody. So I'm like, okay, just shut it and listen. That's what they
Zip
need
itself.
initially. Yes. Yeah. And I would just literally just keep drinking. I'd be like,
Yes.
like
Coincidentally,
I just,
it's Jigna's become
I was
very
just
hydrated
thinking
recently,
that.
in recent memory.
yeah.
So leading support
Yes.
groups really good for staying hydrated.
Mm.
Yep. Yeah.
It's good to know. I mean, you heard it here first. If you're looking to become more hydrated, if you're feeling dehydrated in your life, consider becoming volunteering as a support group
You
leader.
want to talk.
We'll leave the link in the show
Yes.
notes.
You have to take a sip of water instead.
And you become the best listener.
I love that.
If you'd like to be dehydrated, come on our podcast because you get the hour.
No,
I'm
it's
just
true,
kidding.
I love that. I love that. That was so funny.
So I think that it is a very natural time for us to maybe transition to, we're kind of in the silly zone. So if you're comfortable, if you're comfortable, Jigna, in participating in an optional lightning round of questions that are a little on the lighter side.
Yeah, sure.
We'd love to ask you some questions.
Let's do it.
Question number 1. Besides this podcast, do you listen to podcasts? Do you have a favorite one?
I do listen to podcasts. I love Super Soul Sundays. It's just Oprah brings up so many different people that she interviews from different walks of life, religion and spirituality, and inspiration, and women empowerment, every topic you can imagine. So I love Super Soul Sundays.
Cool. I have not. I'm semi new to podcast listening.
I don't understand.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I've been listening. No, I've been listening for a while, but it's not like I don't have a regular lineup that I need to get through the week. So I am loving hearing everybody's fave pods.
Yes.
Okay. What about reading? Are you a book in your ear, book in your hand kind of person?
Book in my hand, 100%.
100%? 100. That is
Yes.
bold.
I think I'm the last person that still buys books all the time. Like, even if I read 3 books at a time, and
multitasking.
So one of those.
So what are you currently reading?
I am reading Integrity by Martha Beck. It's just it's an amazing book about being true to yourself and what this means to this author. And she presents you with her own journey and a whole path on how to be true to yourself, and what does integrity really mean to find, ultimate happiness. So I love reading all kinds of books, but anything that's inspirational and just kind of lifts me up, I'm in.
Yeah. Okay, well, what's your go-to for a quick mental break?
First and foremost, drink water.
I was wondering where that was going to go. First and foremost, drink. I was like, oh God, are we good? Water. Good, Jigna.
Yes. Second is breathe. Breathe. You know how breathing is so important. And I learned that in these last 8 years since I've had my kids, because let's be real, they drive you nuts sometimes. And I'm like, hold on, I'm not breathing as I'm yelling or as I'm clenching my fist or as I'm like, having an anxiety attack. So yeah, I drink water, I take a few deep breaths, and then I literally go in a corner and I read something, whether it's a funny article or inspirational article on my phone, or I have my books around.
You have 3 of them.
But
She's got piles all over the place.
I'm just like, if I do those 3 things in order, then I'll find myself, getting a little break.
That actually I was just going to ask you about like your best parenting hack. That's a good parenting hack or a life hack or an adulting hack, but do you have a favorite parenting hack?
It's going to be something that we all try as parents, to plan as much as you can ahead of time. Oh my goodness, to plan as much as you can ahead of time. That's probably the biggest thing I'll say if you have 1 or more kids, because that's the only way that you'll even get a mental break. The only way I get my mental breaks throughout the day is because I plan for them. And that's the
okay, it's time for me to have a break now. It's 11:07 break time.
100%. And then the other hack is look out for yourself, because everybody is going to be doing their own thing. And as your kids get older and they're done with the newborn phase, the next phase is just you and the kids, and it's like the team that you had, my village, obviously, they're not around as much. And so I'm like, all right, you know what? In order for me to be as best as I can be today, I'm going to take my 2 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever I need. So that's the other hack. Just look out for yourself, because there's nobody else.
You got to keep functioning. That is very true. That's very true. So what is one way that you will show yourself some radical love today?
Practice less mom guilt, because that's daily.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. That's like all the time and every day. So I'm nowhere near there. I have it still, but just practice less of it today.
Okay. Well,
I have a question. I have a really, really important question. How do you take your water? With ice? No ice? Do you like a fruit flavor?
This is actually really important. No pressure at all.
Lemon, like
no
a
pressure.
bit of mint. I need to know.
This is a look into your soul. Go.
Room temperature water, and that's it. Filtered, fresh and clean.
I'm gonna try that next time.
Oh yeah.
That might be a new regular question. How do you take your water? Who cares about coffee? How do you take your water?
I mean, because
and I drink my water in all kinds of mugs. So this is not coffee; it's more. I drink water in coffee mugs. I drink water in everything. So anyway,
at the PSI conference, there's always this big container of water that's in the lobby of the hotel. I feel like the fancy hotels do this. And there's 2 flavors. There's always like 2 options, right? One is like a cucumber and like a mint. And then the other one is usually like citrus or something like that. Like I really like that, but I don't have the time for that in my house every day
at home.
Like I'm not going to make a bathtub sized container of water.
I love flavored waters, but you're so right. I don't do them. Right. I just go for straight water. But at those hotels, I make a point to go get that water at least a few times a day. And I tell them when they're out of it too.
That's great.
So anyway.
Listen, we don't even have to worry about the water running out at the conference this summer.
She's going to be like
on it. She's on water patrol. Hi, the cucumber water's low. So, let's get that refinished. Yeah. Well, listen, hey, if folks would like to get a hold of you, maybe they're in the Houston area and maybe they just want to pick your brain about, anything that you mentioned today, how can they get a hold of you?
So I have an email that I'm using right now for all things related to PMADS and postpartum. It's jpatel, PSI Houston @gmail. So JPATEL PSI HOUSTON @gmail.com.
Awesome.
Thank you for sharing your time with us today. It just really means a lot that you took the time, that you came on here with Emily and I to share your story on a podcast for the first time. We're really honored, and we're so glad that we're basically best friends now. So
You guys are welcome. And I love that you guys are doing this. This is amazing.
Oh,
And this is one more thing.
thanks.
Like, look at this. Like, PSI is like endless. And there's just, I'm so happy you guys are doing this. This is going to reach out to so many women that need to hear all this.
That's
and
the hope.
in turn, just, get whatever help they need. So
Yep.
I'm really happy to be a part of it.
Thanks so much. Thanks for tuning in to the I Am One podcast. Check out today's show notes where we'll drop links to all the important things that we mentioned in this episode. Please consider sharing about our show on social media and following and rating our show wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. It only takes a minute of your time and, well, that'll help with our collective mission of bringing resources and local support to folks worldwide. From everyone here at PSI, thanks again for listening.